What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted, a show that brings you professionals from all walks of life, touching on their backstory, their mindset, and how they navigate through adversity and opposition, while providing you practical tips that might help you on your path. I'm your host, two-time Olympian, Olympic bronze medalist, author, and motivational speaker, Akeem Haynes. Now, let's get into the episode. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted. I know we missed a few episodes in the recent weeks. We had a lot of things going on in life on my end, some traveling, bunch of different things. And I had to take some time to regroup and get those things sorted out. And it just made things a little bit tough with the podcast, but we're back, right? And we have a lot more coming on the show, a lot more great guests. And I know that you will get a lot from them and really enjoy along the way. But before we get into the episode, and what I wanted to talk about today, just want to say thank you to our continued listeners that continue to tune into the show, that continue to support, that continue to like, share, that subscribe on the YouTube page. Everyone that continues to be a part of the Unscripted family, man, I appreciate each of you and thank you for rocking with me since day one. But before we get into the episode, if you can, it would take less than 5 minutes. Do me a favor and leave a rating and review of the show. It'll take a few minutes and it seriously means a lot to me and means a lot to the show. I think we have 31 total reviews. And for as many that listen to the show, I would love to get some more reviews because that's how we can continue to grow the show, develop the show, and get the show in front of a bigger audience. So if you can, you got a few minutes. It takes less than 5 minutes. Please do me a favor and leave a rating and review of the show. It really does mean a lot to me and would mean a great deal to the show. So thank you to everyone that has already left reviews. I really appreciate it. And thank you. Now, let's get into this week's episode. We got a solo episode today. And I wanted to talk about something that came to mind this week, a transparent moment. In the recent few months, there's been a lot going on in my life, a lot of moving parts, some setbacks and delays. There were some moments where my feelings kind of got the best of me. Have you ever had that happen to you? Maybe you're working towards something or preparing for something, then all of a sudden something happens and your initial plans shift and you catch yourself saying like, whoa, like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen. And because you didn't expect it to happen, it knocked off your whole momentum. And then your mind starts to say, wait a minute, what is going on here? Will this work out for me? Why is this happening? And negative thoughts are generally the first thing that happens when we do get into our feelings, followed by doubts, followed by downward spiral of questions, followed by pity, followed by sulking, followed by something else that is counterintuitive to a positive outlook and outcome. And it happens, right? We're emotional beings and we're going to feel what we feel when we feel it. But the question is, how do we overcome that? How do we push past the setbacks and get back to the positive perspective inside of things? How do we bounce back and press toward our goals, dreams, and aspirations when we get knocked off of that straight line? How do we reshift our focus? How do we overcome what we feel and be productive about it? There are a few things from an action standpoint that has helped me reach my goals and pushed me through challenging times and gave me strength through challenging time and strengthened my relationships and helped me in sport, among many other things. And that thing is consistency. There is power in consistency. It doesn't always look like it. It doesn't always feel like it, but there is power in being consistent. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, the power of consistency and why it's important from 3 different quick perspectives and outlook. Throughout my whole time in sport, I never felt like I was just 2 steps behind people. I always felt like I was much more, maybe even 7 steps behind. So I always worked hard, very hard. But more than anything, I was very consistent in my actions every step of the way, right? It clicked for me early, right? I was never a late bloomer in that sense. Once I understood that sport could be a platform that helped me better myself in some form, like it really clicked for me right then and there. We're talking about consistency in your work ethic, even going from a smaller standpoint, right? Along the term of work ethic and consistency, I can count on one hand how many parties I've been through throughout my time in high school and college combined. Okay, maybe two hands. You know what I'm saying? Maybe two hands. But I knew that I couldn't reach certain peaks if I was inconsistent in the areas that mattered. I went to school with some very talented cats, man, like physically, athletically, like freaks in nature, people. And the more that I started to be around them and to watch what they were doing and how they were operating, how they were moving and how they thought, I said, okay, here is how I can even the playing field. I may not be as physically gifted as they are, but I can be consistent, not just on the track, right? I can be consistent away from the track every single day. And so that's what I did. Now, what that looks like from a practical standpoint, right? From how I was able to be consistent away from the track, anybody can work hard when they're doing something, right? When they're supposed to work hard, the physical standpoint of it. But I knew where I could even the playing field was on the nutritional side, on the recovery side. When it comes to my nutrition in sports throughout my career, you wouldn't find someone who was as locked in with all of that stuff as I was. We would all train hard, but I knew I would gain the edge by recovering better, handling my stuff away from the track better, getting my fruits in the system and my veggies and my water and my electrolytes in every single day. I could be consistent in that. And I control that, and it helped big time over time because I was consistent with those small actions early. It helped me make a big impact in my life and still makes an impact in my life today. So we're talking about the consistency from a physical standpoint, whether you're going to the gym, whether you are working in your sport, whether you are practicing your craft, whatever the case may be, you have to be consistent at it physically. And when you are consistent at something physically, it may not look like it's making a big breakthrough in the moment, but over time, that big breakthrough will come. Right? You don't just put on muscles just for working hard in the gym a month. It takes a couple months. It takes a year. It takes time. So whatever it is that you're working towards from a physical standpoint and preparing from a physical standpoint, look what everybody else is doing. And then look at what everybody else is not doing and see if you can be consistent in what they're not doing that may help you get the extra edge. For me in sport, I was looking what everybody else was doing. They were working hard on the track, preparing on the track, making sure that they were ready to handle everything that was happening on the track. But what I also looked at was what they weren't doing. And I noticed that a lot of people weren't eating properly. A lot of people weren't stretching properly. A lot of people weren't getting enough rest or downtime for us to be able to recover and attack the next session at hand. So I didn't just look at what they were doing, but I also took what they weren't doing and took the good and applied that and made that my strength. So when we're talking from physical standpoint, you got to be consistent at it all the way through. Let's look at it from another perspective, right? Let's talk about consistency in relationships. Consistency in relationships is extremely important. I tell my siblings all the time, I say, if you want to know the character of a person, watch what they consistently do. Let me say it again. If you want to know the character of a person, watch what they consistently do. Consistency shows up 95% of the time because we're not perfect. You know what I'm saying? We're not God. We're not Jesus. We're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but we can control our consistency about 95% of the time. It's always interesting to me when I hear people say, man, this person wasn't a rider or this person wasn't a real one. But the question is always this: before you tell someone what they are not, are you that person? Are you that rider? Are you that real one? Are you that person that people can count on? Have you shown up in your relationships the way you want people to show up for you? I've always done my best, my absolute best to show up to my commitments, right? And there have been a few times that I've missed those commitments, but I'd say I'm betting a pretty good average in that format. Let me share this quick example with you. A few months ago, back in what is it? It's about to be June. It's about to be June, but when this is out, it'll be May 29th, right? But a couple months ago in March, right? My wife and I, we were working out, right? Like working out, getting it in the hot Charlotte sun. And we were doing a little bit of a circuit. And I went into the gym to get some mats for us because this was a couple exercises, a part of our circuit. And we were kind of on the turf, and the turf was hot. Nothing worse than a hot turf. So went to get the mat. We were put it on the turf, and we continued our circuit, great sweat in. We put some serious work in. And when we finished working out, I brought the mats back into the gym, cleaned them off, put them on the rack. There was a guy who was working out in the gym, right? And I put the mat back on the hook, and he said to me, "Hey man, I see you guys out there putting in some work, right? I was about to come and join you guys." And I said, "Yeah, man, we do our best. We like to stay active. We like to stay fit. We don't play around with the workouts. We like to make sure that we are getting a great workout and not just out there just playing around with the workout." You know what I'm saying? Anyway, we got into talking a little bit more, and somehow I had agreed to work out with him the next day. Right. So the next day comes, and my wife and I go work out, and it completely slipped my mind that I said I was going to work out with this individual. Right. I wasn't planning to having 2-a-days. I just forgot. I haven't had 2-a-days since I was running track and field and playing football. Right. So anyway, we go about the business, and we get back to our spot and eat a quick meal. And she says, "Are you still going to meet that guy for a workout?" I forgot about it. And when it popped up in my head, man, I was looking for reasons to make an excuse not to go because I had already worked out. I didn't want to go back. I was about to get my shower on and freshen up. I was about to watch the game a little bit later. Man, I had plans for after. Do you ever feel like whenever you have to do something and maybe it wasn't in your calendar, or maybe your mood kind of changed, right? And you have to do something, and you're just looking for excuses to make, right? You're just looking for something to come up so you don't have to follow through with that commitment, right? Because I was looking at the clock, watching the time tick, like, dang, it's getting closer to that time, until I finally said, you know what, man, I got to honor my commitment. So I gathered up my sore body, went down to the area where I said that we would meet, and I sat there and watched the clock tick for 10 minutes past the time that we were supposed to meet. He didn't show up, but I did. I was a person of my word. And even though he didn't show up, I was consistent with who I believed that I was. And even though he didn't show up, because I showed up, it will help me stay consistent in the long run because I honored the commitment. I honored myself. I honored the consistency on what I said that I would do. We are what we consistently show up to do. Habits are created and built with consistency. Consistency has everything to do with you. Didn't have anything to do with anybody else. Yeah, it would have been great for him to show up. He would have got a workout in. It would have been great. But even if he did not show up, I knew that I needed to because my character is being molded. And I have to be consistent with who I am, right? So we got to be consistent in every single thing that we do in our relationships. We got to be consistent to our spouses. We got to be consistent to our partners. We got to be consistent to our kids. We got to be consistent to our parents. We got to be consistent. If you say you are going to do it, you have to do it. No ifs, ands, or buts, unless something happens where you cannot do it. But consistency can show up 95% of the time. So the next time that you want someone to show up for you, ask yourself, have I been that person to show up for them? Now let's talk about it from the last viewpoint that I have for today, and that's consistency towards our goals, dreams, and aspirations and working towards something. I personally think starting anything is easy, right? Because it doesn't require too much. Once a person makes up in their mind that they're going to do something, they're going to do it. Starting doesn't require a whole lot, but finishing something is a different story because it requires more than just excitement, potential, and possibilities. That's enough to start, but it's not enough to maintain and finish it and see it all the way through. Let me ask you this question. When you aren't motivated, what do you do? When you are frustrated and annoyed and tired, what do you do? When you aren't seeing progress right away, what do you do? What has helped me above all physical things is consistently showing up and keeping the end goal in mind. When I retired from sport in 2018 and went fully into speaking, man, look, another transparent moment, I didn't get a single engagement until the next year. That was tough, man. Right? Because I hadn't been speaking since I was 20, but when I retired from sport, I was viewed a little bit differently from my peers. Right? But every day I kept showing up and kept making videos and kept learning how the business side of things worked and kept working on my craft and kept building. And I got an opportunity to speak in one room that led to another room that led to another room. And then when I looked up in 2020, I had a lot of positive momentum moving in the right direction. Right? And I remember talking to some people about speaking in general, man, and they would say, Akeem, man, you can't make any money in that, man. How you want to do it, it's just not really done up here like that. And I remember, man, this is when I felt like God was putting me on the right track, and he shut a lot of people up for me without me even telling them that they should do so, right? I had a speaking engagement with this company a while back, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and that paid me more money in 1 hour than I made in my Puma contract for running, which is a whole other thing in the sport, which we don't have enough time to get into. Right? But I wouldn't have gotten to that moment if I stopped being consistent and stopped showing up. I didn't always know what each day was going to look like, but I knew if I showed up and put a plan together for that day and what I wanted to look like, that I would build positive momentum or at least make myself feel good. You know what I'm saying? I didn't always know what each day was going to look like, but I knew if I showed up, man, that I would be working on the craft. Someone would see it, right? Someone would refer me out there, and who knows what could happen. But if I don't continue to show up and be a physical presence, then no good thing would happen to me. No momentum would be cultivated, right? I just had to continue showing up and plan for the day at hand and execute on that plan to the best of my ability, because those years were not pretty. You know what I'm saying? Those years were not prosperous at the time, right? But I was planting seeds and building habits that were preparing me for those moments. And you have to be consistent in your preparation in the dark so you can execute what you've prepared for in the light. We can't always control what setbacks come our way, but what we can control is the consistency toward the vision, towards the goal, and press toward that mark. So I want to encourage you to continue to be consistent in every area of your life. Be the person someone can always count on. And sometimes that someone is you. Be the person whose words and actions match. Be the person you believe that you say that you are. Consistency is a way of life, not just a word that sounds good. Be consistent as best as you can in the areas that matter most. I say this before and I've said it again. I say it to my siblings all the time as well too, man. I say the best thing that you can do for you when you're trying to figure things out is to continue to show up for you. And be consistent with showing up for you with 100% effort and the strength that you have for that day. Doesn't matter what we do in life, man, whatever it is in any area of our life, make sure that you are consistently involved, consistently present, and consistently doing your best to try to progress forward. So I want to leave you with this. Right. And I would appreciate it if you were listening to this to let me know what some of the things are that you are trying to be consistent at. Let us know in the comments section of our YouTube. Let us know in the comment section on Instagram. What are some of the things that you are being consistent at? And what has consistency along the way taught you about yourself? So again, before we go, if you could do me a huge favor, it would mean a lot to me. Leave a rating and review of the show. It truly, truly does do a whole lot for us, means a whole lot, and continues to put the podcast in front of bigger audience, man. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank each of you again for listening. Thank each of you for continuing to tune into the show. I appreciate each of you, and I don't take you for granted. God bless, and we'll see you next time.